Good morning. Welcome to the Sports Carnival live from the Trauma Center studios. I just want to say on behalf of all the animal lovers out there, Dave, I know you're an animal lover. I'm an animal lover. Happy Veterinarians Day. We're talking about the doctors of the dog pound, the physicians of the farm, the surgeons of the shelters. So on behalf of the show, I just want to say happy Veterinarians Day there, Dave.
Wow. Chad, I love where you're going with this because you're right. I'm a PETA man through and through, and I mean the sandwich. I like animals too, but this is Veterans Day. Veterinarians Day is...
Veterans Day is on the 11th. Today is the 10th.
Yes, but we're saying happy... Wow. Is Veterinarians Day not in March? I was pretty sure it was in March. It comes...
Today is the 11th.
Whoops. Look at that, 11. So yesterday was National Veterinarians Day. Is that what you're saying? And today would be Veterans Day.
I thought today was, maybe I just read the calendar wrong. Either way, okay, well, back up. Happy Veterans Day. My dad is a veteran.
Yes.
So happy Veterans Day to all you veterans out there. That's my bad. Total my fault. I apologize.
Yeah, you got to really look at that advent calendar that you've got because, see, Chad has a little chocolate advent calendar. It's a 12-month-a-year thing, and he flips through and see, that's what happens. You take the little square out, you pop that chocolate, you're all of a sudden, whoops, it's Veterinarians Day. Hey, let's start off at the top here because we've got a bunch of our audience members starting to check in. Soul Surfer, who is Jason Breacher, P1 Breach, Marine, veteran of the Marine Corps. Jeremy, P12 Foreman, veteran of the United States Air Force. Matter of fact, Chad, Jeremy Foreman lived in Vegas when we did. We didn't meet him, obviously, because he had real things to do and a real job, and we were fucking around, playing radio and stuff. But Jeremy lived in Vegas. Actually, I believe married his wife in Vegas. Yes, while he was a member of the Service Academy. Rob Dog from
Nellis Air Force Base. Good for him.
Sir. Yes, sir. Rob Dog from Sutter checking in says, Dave and Chad, you should be scared. In my English class, I need to do a full analysis on a form of advertising. Oh, and we'll look into the Sports Carnival. That's not scary. That's not scary at all. As a matter of fact, we want to thank all of our great sponsors, the Recovery Room, powering the Trauma Center studios, Preferred Insurance, our official insurance provider, Home Auto Life Business, the Midwest Mortgage Team, Mike Garcia, Todd Vercruz, the Coos. Of course, our good friend Kyle Cable over at One Trust Real Estate. I'm meeting Kyle today, Chad. We've got some real estate inquiries to be talking about today.
Cool.
And our supporting sponsors, Joe's Helping Hands Landscaping and Sean O'Neill of the O'Neill Law Firm. Thanks so much, everybody, for making this program go. Morning Woods up and at it says, thanks to all the people here that sacrificed everything that they are for this country. Thank you. And yeah, Chad, he misread the advent calendar. It isn't
That's my bad.
Veterinarians Day, even though I do think that National Veterinarians Day, because here's what happened. The Hallmark analytics bots that scroll through all of these different, web platforms are probably now in the process of creating a National Veterinarians Day, which will come with a lot of shame if you don't give the right gifts to your veterinarian on National Veterinarians Day. It's not like the veterinarian is an inexpensive sort of a thing, because I've got a dog and 2 cats. You have to carve out $1,000 just to go to the veterinarian and have them say, yeah, this guy looks good. Oh, thank God. Wow. Veterinarians are important, but yeah, if you're going to get shamed for not giving them the right kind of gift, I think that I'm going to have to just go ahead and pass on the holiday.
Okay. I don't know if they even make a card for that, but they should.
They will now.
Hallmark, if you're listening. Facebook user, morning, guys. Thank God the Lakers play tonight. Easy money.
So,
fade the Lakers all year.
Do it all year. And we've got a little look ahead to the weekend. We got a big weekend of sports coming up, Chad. We've got Packers and Cowboys. Of course, the poll question on our Twitter feed at the Sports Carney and the Facebook group page, Chad, is asking you who you think is going to win this Sunday. We've got the Eagles in action, final home game versus Platteville. The Bucks tonight coming up versus the Spurs. We've got an injury update. We'll tell you about that. And of course, you've gotten a chance to win Bucks tickets now until the end of November over at the Recovery Room. But I do just want to say this. LeBron James, just kind of previewing ahead, he is out. He's going to be out tonight. He's got an abductor muscle strain.
I believe is something to do with your stomach.
It's a stomach. Well, the abductor can be anywhere. There's hip abductors. There's abdomen abductors. He's got a groin strain.
I thought it was, so I'm wrong. It was in his groin area.
Yes. It's
I didn't look down far enough. My bad.
That's right. Well, you were a little, listen, we all said.
Well, in that case, it might be a knee injury, but that's a whole nother.
Is that a baby's arm carrying an apple? What is that? Jesus Christ almighty. So LeBron's going to be out. LeBron's going to be out for tonight's game. And the Lakers right now at BetUS, okay, if you go to BetUS, the Lakers right now are only giving up 4.5 points versus the Kings. Look, Sacramento, Chad, was one of the worst teams in the NBA last year. They're really not good this year. The Lakers are atrocious, and 4.5 points feels like a gift. The longer today goes on, the more that the news starts to come out that LeBron's not going to be playing. You'll probably see that number move to about 6. So if you're inclined, get on it now, and let's get this going. I see that our friend Jimmy the Haggerty says, morning, gents, go Hilltoppers. Here's a preview next week, because the Hilltoppers football season is going to wrap up. Next week, we're going to talk to Hilltoppers head basketball coach Craig Cole on the program. The Hilltoppers basketball season, Chad, will tip off on the 14th, and we will be getting Craig Cole on. I like this is Tony Russa from Preferred Insurance says, call Preferred Insurance for your pet insurance. I like this. This is a real thing. Insurance is real.
I'm just so glad that I didn't add my feline gynecologist joke, because that probably went over very well.
Wow.
I had it all set up, and I'm glad I pulled the trigger, or I pulled the string on that one, because that probably would have went bad.
Well, they say I've got a.
That's what I mean.
Yep. You are smart to not give me that one.
When I was writing it last night in a different frame of mind, it was hilarious. But I was in a different frame of mind. And now that I have more clarity, I realize that that probably wouldn't have went well. So.
Yeah, well, when I get into a New York state of mind too, everything goes crazy. They're playing piano, listening to Frank Sinatra. That game last night, Thursday Night Football, I know we're not going to pound this one too hard. That was kind of a slop fest, wasn't it?
Yeah. I think you and I both called it, though. The difference in the game, and it was pretty obvious. I can't believe other people didn't. Laviska Shenault, of course. You and I mean, we've gone on so we've just went on and on about Laviska. How many times have we talked about this guy? He was the difference maker in that 42-yard scamper for a touchdown. I mean, the name comes to mind when you think superstar.
Yes. Well, of course,
Laviska Shenault.
Yeah, he was great in F1, and then when he came, from F1 to the NFL, it became like an obvious transfer. Like Laviska Shenault, who the fuck is this guy? Like, how did he get in the league? What was that? All right, boys and girls, when we come back, we'll give Nick Cannon, all his 12 kids, a chance to play for the Lakers tonight. At least that's what Morning Wood said is going to happen. I'm not sure if that's real news or fake reporting, but we got a lot to cover here on the Sports Carnival, broadcasting live from the Trauma Center studios. Don't go anywhere. What can I say? The Recovery Room on 7th and Mississippi Street is not only my favorite bar in all of downtown La Crosse, Wisconsin, it's my favorite restaurant in all of downtown La Crosse, Wisconsin. Breakfast served 8 to noon, Saturday and Sundays, daily specials, incredible cocktails, and the best damn wait staff in the entire city. My buddy Matt knows how to treat you right, and that's why when you go to the Recovery Room on 7th and Mississippi, you're always going to have a great time and a great meal with a great cocktail. So if you haven't been in a while, or perhaps you're just regular and you want to stop in again, make it a thing. I'm there every single week. How about you?
At the Little Doobie's Pizza, we kill 2 stone birds with 1 rock every time with our hand-rolled Doobie Deluxe for only $49.95. That's a street value of over $75. No way! The Doobie Deluxe is a hand-rolled 18-inch pizza that will blow your bone-resent mind. Whoa! Topped with the sausage, black olives, extra cheese, and about a ½ ounce of the finest kush at east side of San Bernardino.
Dude, give me another slice.
Because at Little Doobie's Pizza, we put a little TLC in our THC.
And right now, for a limited time only, get an order of crazy cannabis bread for only $10 with an order of a Doobie Deluxe at the street value of over $22.50.
You know what we said at the Little Doobie's Pizza? Why get stoned then eat when you can do both at the same time?
Doobies.
Now back to the action live from the Trauma Center studios. This is the Sports Carnival. I was going to make a bulimia joke, but it kind of made me sick. Now here's your host, Dave Carney.
Hey, now we're not gonna do anything this weekend that would actually get us sick, would we? Like, so what are we doing this weekend? We're gonna consume nope. This could be a big one. I was like 8 to 10,000 calories of football, snacks this weekend. Yeah, we could actually. We'd probably need a little of that bulimia.
Bush lattes, a couple bush lattes.
Yeah, I'm gonna be doing Pearl Street Brewery beer. So Saturday over at the Eagles game, they have an area set up. So Pearl Street Brewery, one of our great local breweries here, huge operation, Chad. They set up a nice tent, bring out a big truck full of all of their, well, not all of their beer, probably 4 or 5 of their selections, $5 a pop, and you get to sit there and watch the Eagles. What's really going to be difficult this week is me readjusting and acclimating. And I know that I'm a sis. I know this, but readjusting and reacclimating to the weather, because I'm standing outside. It'll be for what, a couple hours, 2.5 hours. And I think the high on Saturday is going to be 34. The good news is it's going to be sunny, right? So at least we've got that. It doesn't look like it's going to be too windy, but I'm going to have to get reacclimated to this weather. So I'm going to be drinking a beer and hoping that internally that starts to warm me up. The Busch Lattes, those are hydration beers. Like, you drink Busch Lattes when you're getting ready to like smoke a cigarette, play a game of pickup basketball, right? You've got to get your water in so that you're ready to go. Got to stay hydrated.
These are light beers. When we refer to Busch Latte, does that cover both?
Yes. No, it's Busch Light. So
It
Busch
is Busch
Regular,
Light.
I don't even know if Busch Regular exists. I've never even seen.
It does.
Oh, does it? Okay. All right. All right.
It tastes like Busch Light, but shittier.
Okay. All right.
It's exactly the same, but just a little shittier is
just
all.
a little shittier. All right. So so probably that's what you do when, Chad, let's say you haven't confessed in 9 Packers games, right? Like, forgive me, Father, it's been 9 Packer games since my last confession. You've got to do 3 Hail Marys and drink a Busch Regular, right? Like, just to pay your penance, because you got to do something.
Well,
right?
Yes, you do have to pay your penance. Speaking of paying our penance, last night I did watch that game, which was a little bit sloppy.
That was a rough one.
It was a bit rough, not necessarily star-studded, if you will. I do enjoy watching Marcus Mariota, but I was telling you, so I'm watching this. You're the one that turned me on to this. This Prime Vision. So if you're watching on Thursday nights, check out Prime Vision if you haven't checked it out, because it's really cool, because they add all these graphics and stuff. And for some people, that's distracting. For me, I think it's really cool because it kind of reminds me of Madden a little bit, and you can follow it. Anyway, they give all these stats and stuff. So one of the things that they had prior to the game, they were talking about Jeff Saturday. Jeff Saturday is now the 14th center to become a head football coach in the NFL.
Yeah.
And there's been 28, which is exactly double, 28 quarterbacks become head coach in the NFL. I just thought that you and I were kind of talking about that off the air. I find that interesting, but it makes sense because you think about the two guys that touch the football more than anybody. It's the center and the quarterback.
It really does make a lot of sense. And then we started talking about the defensive side of the ball, right? And a lot of middle linebackers or linebackers have become head coaches from a defensive side, right? And it does make sense. The center, the quarterback, they're essentially the captains of the offense. If it doesn't work with the center, and it's not going to work with the quarterback, and similar on the other side of the football with that middle linebacker. But what else is interesting last night in the pregame to Thursday Night Football was talking about Jeff Saturday becoming head coach of the Colts. And from all reports, initial reports, and this could be contrived by the team, I'm not sure, but all the initial reports suggest that Jeff Saturday is getting along real well with the team and that he's going to be some sort of positive influence. Richard Sherman, Ryan Fitzpatrick, we're talking about this in the pregame, but the thing about Jeff Saturday that I think is shocking a lot of people in the NFL right now, especially those like ourselves that we take time to sort of cover the league. What is a little shocking is not that Jeff Saturday, a good offensive football player and somebody who was a multiple-time Pro Bowler with that team, gets a job. It's just that he jumps over every single person with experience. So there are all these coaches on the team, all these other people that have struggled, that have worked 25, 30 years in the coaching profession, that have been desperate for one of these opportunities. And it's not to say that Jeff Saturday won't do a good job, but there is something, I think, a little offensive to some coaches, and maybe that's the wrong term. Maybe it's not offensive, but I think it does cause you pause. If you're, I don't know, name an offensive coordinator that hasn't gotten a job, or a defensive guy that's like, wait, when am I going to get my shot? And this guy was like literally last week working on television. And so I think that when you look at the structure of the NFL and how hard it is to break in, the Jeff Saturday hire, it's a shocker. But I will say this too, because I've tried to find people knocking Jeff Saturday for whatever reason. You don't have a lot of those. Jeff Saturday seems to be resoundingly thought of as a really good guy, a really smart NFL player, and somebody who could potentially do a good job. It's just, it is interesting to see an owner like that go completely counter to what the narrative would be. And who knows? Listen, if Jim Irsay, maybe he got into some of that ayahuasca that Rodgers drinks. If this thing works out for Jim Irsay, it's going to look like a masterstroke. It's going to look like a masterstroke. It's
pronounced vodka, but yes, he did get into some spirits, I think, possibly. But yeah, you know what? The thing about Jeff Saturday, he is well liked, like you said, not only within the locker room and within the team, but across the league. And he's got those beguiling, devilishly blue eyes that you probably, you know what I mean? He's kind of like one of those guys
like,
that can probably hypnotize you.
Like Jim the Haggerty, who's looking, who's shout out to Straight Bush Heavy. Jimmy the Haggerty has those same kind of eyes, right? Like you look at him and you're like, Jesus, those things are transfixing.
Is Haggerty over 6'2"?
Not 6'2". I want to say Jim comes right in about 6 with the boots on.
Does that qualify for your tall guy? Never have to have a hard life.
Nope. Jim could absolutely be a degenerate on the side of the road. No question about it. No question about
Jeff
it.
Saturday, though, I know he's over 6'4", right?
Dude, Jeff Saturday. Well, look, I mean, Jeff Saturday doesn't even have to be an NFL coach. He's just going to get the job because he's tall.
And he's got blue eyes.
The job. It's like, yeah, you're look at the impressive size of this guy. He knows things. He's tall. It's funny. I was at the recovery room a couple of nights ago. Mike Garcia was there. Jordan Lonsborough, one of our listeners. Ethan, guys from American Construction. Big party. We had a little impromptu P1. And Ethan, one of the guys that's with us, is 6'3", 6'4". He's the UWL softball pitching coach. And I'll be hanging with him on Saturday at that little tailgate outside of the stadium. Anyways, I do the video. I turn it around and I'm like, oh, Ethan, well, he's just tall. You should have seen the comments come on my TikTok page, which is at the Sports Carney. Tall guys win. Yay for the tall guy. There's the tall guy. Thankfully, Mike Garcia was there with me because in the same context, while I'm turning the camera around, he's like, tall guys go to the back. And I'm like, that's right. Thank you, Mike. I appreciate that.
Well, so let me ask you this, and we kind of talked about this yesterday with Denton, but I'm kind of rethinking this. I'm thinking initially they're playing the Raiders this weekend. I'm thinking that you take the Raiders, but now that I think about those beguiling blue eyes of Jeff Saturday, and we're hearing that everybody seems to be, chummy with the guy, and maybe this buoys their spirits, and the Raiders are iffy anyway. Maybe you go the other way. Where do you lay your money if you're going to bet that game?
The under. That's the only play on this one, because first of all, if the Raiders lose this game and Josh McDaniels loses to Jeff Saturday, who's never coached an NFL game before, I wouldn't be entirely surprised if he gets fired, because that would be a complete clusterfuck of unimaginable proportions. I'm looking at the line right now. So the Raiders are currently just giving up 4.5 points. The total on this game is 41. I cannot see 41 total points being combined. Jeff Saturday. Oh, thank you, Jimmy. 5'11".
5'11". Okay.
Jeff
That's what
Saturday,
I tell people I am. I'm not, but that's what I tell people.
I can act 5'11" with shoes on. I really, like, my son told me this the other night because I was talking to somebody.
Act 5'11",
and they asked me how tall I was, and I said, "Oh, about 5'11". He came back and he was like, "Dude, yeah, with like good shoes on, you're 5'11". You're like 5'10".
Kiss boots. If you get your Kiss boots on,
yeah, come on, man. So listen, if the Raiders lose this game, it's going to be an absolute atrocious travesty. Here's what I think that Jeff Saturday's job is: to not lose the team. Because at this point, and we'll talk about it with the Packers, and I know the Packer fans, there's still some hope out there that they can beat this Cowboy team, which they won't. But if you're Jeff Saturday, if you're Jim Irsay, the idea here is not to win 3 more football games this year. That's not the idea, because you need to do, this is where they're at. They've got to get back from something that they lost from Andrew Luck, right? When they lost Andrew Luck, they had no plan going forward. There really was no plan.
It shocked them, I think.
Of course it did. And that was a generational talent that decided to leave. If Andrew was still in this league now, he'd be on his way to a Hall of Fame jacket. I mean, no question about it. So they need to get a good draft pick. Jeff Saturday, if we remember anything about his penchant as playing center, he's going to want to run the fucking football. Okay, so Jeff Saturday is going to want to run the football. Ellinger is not somebody who can carry that team. For the Raiders, though, Darren Waller, tight end that became the highest paid tight end, he's out. He's on the injured reserve. Will miss at least the next 4 games, Chad. And Hunter Renfrow, one of the sure-handed receivers for Las Vegas, is also going to be out. At the end of the day, to go ahead and steal from our friend Joe DeGuano, the end of the day, the bottom line is the Raiders can't lose this game. They absolutely cannot lose this game. So if you were going to make a play on the money, I would take the Raiders, but I think that the best play in this game is to just go under the total of 41, because I wouldn't be surprised if the Raiders win it by a field goal and you don't get a cover, but the Raiders still do win. If they don't, I really struggle to think about what Josh McDaniels' future is in Las Vegas, because if we know one thing, we know this: the Davis family. I mean, think what you want about the Irsay family, boy. The Davis family, they gonna get fired up. Like, baby is the mantra.
Yeah, well, at least the Irsay family has a better hairstylist than the Davis family. We know that. Neil Duda apparently is 5'11.5".
Yeah.
I don't know why we're going with how tall we are, but it's kind of fun.
It's kind of fun. He's like, I wish I could 6'6", but not trying to overcompensate. Well, look, I mean, I'm not trying to overcompensate either, but here's what I would like to say. I would like my pronoun to be tall. Like, if you could just use my pronoun, what's your pronoun? Tall. Because, people meet me, and I don't know how this has been for you throughout the years. We've been on air for a long time, and this is like the first time in so many years that we've done a visual medium, right? You used to do a TV show back in the day, and, I've done things on camera once or twice, but this is the first time we're in a visual medium. When people have met you through the years, what was their expectation? Like, say that you met somebody and you were at a remote or you were someplace and they've seen you for the first time. What was the expectation that they told you? Because it's never what it actually is.
Actually, I'm one of those guys that actually fits my voice. Nobody's ever surprised. They're like, yeah, it's basically what I was thinking.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe a little shorter. I thought you were going to be shorter. Maybe the only thing I've ever heard.
Mine usually comes with like, so this is like, I get this thing where it's like, I thought you'd be taller. And that's why I'm like, no, just call me tall. Just call me tall.
You do sound tall, by the way.
Thank you. That's what I mean. Like, when I meet people in a lot of ways, if they've never met me before and they've heard me on the radio, they're like, I thought you'd be taller or older. That's the other thing I get. Much older or much taller. Joey Tropicana is checking in here. Joey Tropicana, Chad, was one of our P1s. And yes, my man, you are doing this thing right. Joey Tropicana, welcome aboard. I see that Mike Byers, there you go. Good call. Mike Byers, everybody's favorite Texan that lives now in La Crosse, says happy Veterans Day to Foreman, Breacher, and the other veteran listeners. And Foreman did correct us.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say Foreman did correct us. Where was that? Because he had the, oh, there we go. He says Foreman not at Nellis. He was out there providing or in the proving grounds by Indian Springs, working with the UAVs and the alien spaceships. Whoops. Fuck, I forgot about that. I wasn't supposed to say that. Bob Lazar is going to be
Foreman was flying drones? That's cool. I'd love to pick his brain sometime. That's very interesting to me.
Wow. Picking Foreman's brain. You want to talk about a fucking rabbit hole that you didn't go down. That's one that you pull that thread. Good luck getting out of it.
I was just going to say to Mike Byers, being a Texan, big weekend this weekend, TCU and Texas. Now, I want to say 4 out of the last 5 meetings, TCU has won this.
But they're in Texas.
Yes, they're in Texas, and TCU has been coming from behind all year long. I don't think they want to play that strategy in this game. I think they want to get ahead early. I don't know if you want to do a come from behind on Texas. I think that's the one game I'm really looking forward to watching this weekend, other than obviously the NFL.
So if we could, let's pull up a little slide, because we're going to talk more Packers coming up in just a bit. We've got a poll question on our Twitter feed at the Sports Carney. It's also on the Facebook group page, Chad, which now has 200 members. Thank you guys and gals so much for joining our Facebook group page. But let's look ahead a little bit to this weekend, because we've got a lot of action that's out there. You mentioned Texas and TCU. I'm really looking forward to that game too. I don't know that TCU deserves to be the number 4 team in the college football playoff, and I think that this Saturday, unless they win, will knock them out of that. Because if they do win on Saturday, if I'm not mistaken, they will win at least a share of the Big 12 championship. But we do have a big weekend of football. So the other games that I'm looking forward to, we're talking about the Eagles. Of course, they'll wrap up their regular season versus Platteville Saturday, 1:00 at Roger Herring Stadium. But the Badgers, Chad, the Wisconsin Badgers, who are now steadily showing some major improvement under the stewardship of Jim Leonhard, they'll be at Iowa, a team that cannot score the football. They play great defense, but they cannot score the football. So Badgers and Iowa, both 5-4. Game will be 2:30 kickoff on FS1. I'll be following along on my phone. I will not be watching this because I'll be at Roger Herring Stadium with that Eagles team. But this Badger team under Jim Leonhard, Chad, I wasn't sure how it was going to look. I figured they would have some sort of improvement, but I believe they're 3-1 now with Jim as their head coach. And it feels like some of the chutzpah, some of the Badger energy that they usually were known to play with is coming back a little bit. This will be a really interesting game to see how they fare against a Big Ten opponent like Iowa, even though they can't score on the road in a pretty tough spot to play.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, Iowa's defense, it'll be the road graders against that defense. That should be fun. Looking forward to that game as well. Actually, it's a great weekend for sports, not just for football. NBA is really kind of chugging along. disappointed to see that Giannis and Drew Holiday are going to be out. That's tonight, right? The game against the Spurs.
Yeah, tonight, 7:00. You'll be able to see that on Bally Sports or Bally Sports Plus if you're in the area. The Bucks are going to this is what I think they're going to do this season. The Bucks are going to look at the regular season much like they did in the season that they won the championship, especially considering that you've got Middleton and Ingles and Connaughton still out. And I'll tell you what that means. As opposed to what the Bucks did in Mike Budenholzer's first couple of years, where they went to blow the doors off the regular season, win every single game, get the home court advantage, number one seed, because they felt they needed it, desperately needed it in order to win the Eastern Conference. When the Bucks won the NBA championship, Chad, Mike Budenholzer started to pull back on the reins a little bit in the regular season. They will sit out Giannis a game or two at a time, depending on opponent, okay? They will sit out Drew Holiday, depending on opponent. As long as there is one of their big 3 or 4, Brook Lopez, Giannis Antetokounmpo, Drew Holiday, or Chris Middleton on the floor, they'll start to look at some of these games as management. Now, it's not to say that Giannis isn't dealing with some sort of knee issue, which, if you're a Bucks fan, you want to take a you want to take a look at, and I don't want to say get too concerned, but you do need to keep an eye on this, because Giannis over the last couple of years, and I don't know if it happened in that finals game against Phoenix where he looked like he might have hyperextended that knee. Remember that? He went up for the block against Ayton, and it didn't look good. I don't know if that still has some sort of lingering effect, but at least Giannis is a gamer way more than Kawhi Leonard is. Like, Kawhi Leonard is one of these guys, if he has a sniffle, he's out 6 to 7 games. If he feels like, oh man, my leg is sore, he's out. So with Giannis, I hope that it's just a maintenance and a management thing. But if it turns out to be, because the Hawks were not a scrub team the other night, if it turns out to be a longer process, then we'll have to be looking at what that might mean for the Bucks down the road.
As you said, Giannis is a gamer. He's old school. He doesn't strike me as the type that doesn't want to play. So to me, this is a coaching decision more than it is a Giannis decision. My guess would be he wants to play, and he probably has argued to play, but they're just, being cautious, which that's smart. And again, it's an 82-game season. It's early yet. Don't spend all your ammunition at the beginning. You need to hold on to some of that, and so you're ready and geared up. Ultimately, it's about the playoffs. Really, I think that if the Bucks walk away from the season without at least going to the NBA Finals, I would have to say it's disappointing.
At this point in the season, absolutely. And I know it's early, but the Milwaukee Bucks are still 10-1 on the season so far. And one of the other things that is really impressive about this Bucks team, and we'll look at the game tonight versus San Antonio as one of these test case examples, is that they look to develop their players in spots where they can. You've mentioned Marshawn Beauchamp, who is a native of your area up there in Washington, in Yakima. Well, Marshawn Beauchamp had 19 points the other night in a really gutsy victory. The fact that the Bucks get to develop these players while they give a night off to the likes of Giannis or Drew Holiday while Middleton's coming back and these other rotation players are not playing, who will absolutely eat up those minutes. The fact that they get to develop some of these guys, Jordan Norwa is another player that I like watching off the bench for the Bucks. I think that really helps, because when you get into the postseason, you never know what can happen, and you never know when somebody goes out, right? And if it's a 2-week injury in the playoffs, well, that can be devastating. You could ruin your chances. But if you've developed confidence in these guys and they've played in spots during the regular season, when they get their number called, Chad, it's not like a shock to them, like, oh God, I've got to go out there and perform. I haven't shot a basketball all year. You look back to those Bulls teams back in the old days, they really were blessed with a lot of luck and a lot of health, because if one of those players goes down for any significant amount of time, Jordan Pippen, Horace Grant, Bill Cartwright, for Christ's sakes, John Paxson, that thing just goes kaputs. There were no, 12 guys deep on that bench. And this Bucks team, man, I mean, Serge Ibaka barely gets on the court, right?
Isn't that amazing?
Barely
when you
gets
think
on the
about
court.
that, yeah, Serge Ibaka is at one time was a dominating player. You know what I mean? He was all-star caliber guy, and the fact that he doesn't get a lot of time does show you, or illustrate, if you will, that they have a lot of depth, and they do. And we keep mentioning guys like Bobby Portis as well. Bobby Portis is huge, and as you mentioned, Brook Lopez, and it's just a fun team to watch. And I'm I'm obviously a Celtic fan,
sure,
but I'm becoming a Bucks admirer. I don't know if I would call it a fan, but I'm admiring the Bucks more and more. And of course, I have all the respect in the world for Giannis and understand what kind of talent. This is generational talent, and you need to enjoy it while it's here, because you never know what's going to happen.
Well, exactly. And well said. I think that for you, Chad, it's going to be hard, knowing you the way that I do. It's going to be hard for you not to be an admirer and ultimately a fan of the Bucks team, because you're a grinder, and that's what Giannis is, and that's what this Bucks team is. And we got a game against the Spurs tonight if we're Bucks fans, which pits our coach Mike Budenholzer versus his former coach Greg Popovich. And the way that these two teams have built each other, the Spurs and the Bucks, I have seen a mirror effect. I really have. Look at the Utah Jazz. It's Phil Hardy. I said Phil Handy. That was an older basketball coach. But Hardy, the guy in Utah, he's also out of that Greg Popovich coaching tree. Greg Popovich actually has one of the best NBA coaching trees of all time. Like the guys that he has put in, Quinn Snyder, Hardy. You've got Budenholzer. I said Dan Quinn, he's defensive coordinator of the Cowboys. That'll be in town this weekend.
Well, that's how good of a coach Pop is, especially defensive-minded coach. He actually inspires football coaches as well. I agree with you. Yes.
Isn't that something? Hey, real quick, before we go to break, the last thing that we saw in that slide, which we'll keep talking about, is this. Go to the recovery room. I know we got a Bucks game tonight. Maybe you don't have Bally Sports Plus. Go to the recovery room. They open at 11. Order a shot or a cocktail of Absolute or Jameson and get yourself an entry slip. Chad, on the 30th of November, we're having a big brouhaha. And on the 1st of December, we're going to announce who's winning tickets to go see the Bucks take on the Raptors at the Fiserv Forum. Guys and gals, stay tuned. We're going to come back in about a minute here on the Sports Carnival, broadcasting live from the Trauma Center studios. The official mortgage team of the Sports Carnival is the Midwest mortgage team of Land Home Financial, my good buddies Mike Garcia and Todd Vercruzzi. Listen, we all know the mortgage industry is in a bit of an upheaval right now, and that's why it's more important than ever to go to a couple of guys that you can trust, a local operation right here in La Crosse. That is the Midwest mortgage team. Again, Michael Garcia and Todd Vercruzzi of Land Home Financial. Don't make a mistake with your mortgage needs. Go to the official mortgage provider of the Sports Carnival, the Midwest mortgage team, Mike Garcia and Todd Vercruzzi.
Preferred Insurance is the official auto, home, business, flood, and life insurance agency of the Sports Carnival, serving folks in La Crosse and surrounding areas with licenses in Wisconsin, Minnesota, and Iowa. As an independent insurance agency, Preferred Insurance is free to find the very best insurance for you, your family, or your business needs. Call my friends at Preferred Insurance today and set up a free consultation. Remember, working with an independent agency means Preferred Insurance works for you, with you, to find the best solutions at the best prices.
Back to the Sports Carnival, broadcasting live from the Trauma Center studios. Hey, all you soccer fans, it's called a field, not a pitch, okay? Pitch is baseball, dummies. Now here's your host, Dave Carney.
Hey now, those soccer fans, man, you better be careful because those guys are going to get dressed up in their silk shorts, their long stockings, come out there, and they're going to fall all over the place and look at you like you've just committed a flagrant Aaron Rodgers foul. You know how that rolls. You got to be careful about that.
They call it football. If it was football, you'd be playing with a football, not a soccer ball. That's why we call it soccer.
All right, you're picking an international fight. Don't know if you can win that one, big guy. Don't know if you can win that one.
Soccer hooligans.
Chad, we've got a little breaking news here on the program, and I'm glad that you've got the ticker kind of scrolling along the sides. One of our intrepid outside investigative journalists, Chad, somebody that that used to know a guy that you went to school with at one time, school to be named later, has given us a really big piece of breaking news. And I don't know if we've got a new sounder yet. We're going to work on that. We'll get a bop, 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 bop. But
I will. I apologize. I don't have it. So
no, we'll get there. But the big news is this. It looks like Anthony Street Clothes Davis is close to being traded from the Lakers to the Buffalo Exchange. The Buffalo Exchange, Chad, is a used clothing store in Las Vegas and parts of the West Coast.
Street clothes.
Sources close to the program tell us that Buffalo Exchange is also going to be doing a deep discount on all used street clothes. So that's going to be something. Now, what the Lakers get back, and this is what I thought was interesting, vintage pair of 1961 Levi 501s, which is always in demand.
Yeah.
The sunglasses that Hunter S. Thompson wore while he was writing Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas.
Yeah.
And the leftover ketamine that Hunter S. Thompson had in the brim of a hat once. So
ketamine will knock you out. You don't want to do that. That's no good. That's
what you need to talk to Foreman about. You go deep diving on Foreman when he's on ketamine, and then you get to really know this guy. Like,
isn't that
really know him?
Ketamine has something. I think that has something to do with veterinarians and large farm animals.
We're talking about it on National Veterinarians Day, of course. It's a horse tranquilizer. God damn it!
That's right, horses. I'm sorry.
You take some of that and intervectum, and all of a sudden you're cured everything. You're like, wow, I had some special K and intervectum, and boosh, I was good to go. Morning Wood's like, street clothes.
Oh, sorry.
No,
Yeah.
thank you. I just thought that was funny. Neil Duda chimed in something.
Sorry, I apologize.
Listen, this is all good. This is why we go back and forth. Rob Dog says, my public speaking class, we debated who is better between LeBron and MJ. I looked at the kid who said, give me LeBron, and said, give me Giannis so he doesn't have to. Okay.
Hashtag dead ball bitching.
I like this. Yeah, I think that LeBron James and Michael, that's a hard comp, man, because they're two different players, right? Like, it's like Michael was a shooting guard. LeBron's a power forward.
If we want to dig into this is how I look at it. Okay, I want to look at it logically. If you give me the top 10 guys on your list, let's say that you make your list, okay, and you tell coaches and you tell organizations, I'm going to give you the names, I'm going to give you their accolades, but that's all you're going to know. So you're going to know that all of these guys are MVPs, multiple-time MVPs, multiple-time champions, multiple-time defensive players of the year, all-stars, whatever. And that's all the information you know, and you know their name, but you don't know anything else because you've never watched them before. Okay. What's the metric you're going to use to choose them? How tall they are. So if you're going to look at a guy like Michael Jordan, who's 6'6", and you know that he's going to be a multi-time champion, multi-time MVP, or LeBron James, who are you going to take? You're going to take the 6'8" guy over the 6'6" guy. Are you not?
Well, then, yes, in a lot of ways, because you're right. You can't teach tall. Basketball is about being tall. Now, let me just go ahead and further this, because this is a conversation I've had many times with folks here in Wisconsin, and I think it's still apropos, and I want to keep his name in the conversation for GOAT. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Kareem listed himself at about 7'2", where really and truly he was about 7'4". Kareem was massive. I saw him and Shaq once at the Staples Center, and Kareem was inches taller than Shaq, like at least a couple, and that's with decades of, as you've mentioned, gravity sort of pulling you down. Yes. Kareem was inches taller than Shaq, and Shaq's 7'1". So Kareem is probably closer to 7'3". And say what you will, because LeBron's gone to 75 NBA finals, and he's going to play until they carry him off on a stretcher, and that's cool. But Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, again, back to your point about accolades, 6-time MVP, most in the history of the league, 6-time NBA champion, the all-time leader in scoring. If they would have been counting block shots when he was first coming into the league, the first 8 years, Kareem didn't get a block shot counted as an actual stat. He would be by far the all-time block shot leader.
And multiple-time defensive player of the year, because that award didn't exist really until later in his career as well.
Indeed. And you're right. He would have been a multiple-time defensive player of the year early on, because Kareem was as dominant as anybody in the history of the game has been both sides of the court. Now, the stylistics of LeBron and Michael, the recency bias that we have, that goes right to the heart of the conversation. But something that Rob Dog said about dead ball bitching is this. When we look at the end of the careers of LeBron, of Giannis, of Michael, of Kareem, we're going to see Giannis Antetokounmpo in the top 3 to 4 conversation, because unless he gets injured, if he continues this trajectory at 27 years old, remember, Michael Jordan did not win his first NBA championship until he was 27 years old. So we've already got one in the bag for Giannis, and I see at least one more in his career. I cannot fathom his career going without one more championship. But that will be an interesting debate, because then we're going to look at a guy like Giannis at nearly 7 feet, multiple-time MVP, champion, defensive player of the year. I think that'll be a more interesting comparison and a contrast between LeBron James than Michael Jordan is. To me, Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant are the two closest. Michael Jordan reminded me a lot of Oscar Robertson, and more Elgin Baylor, I should say, than Oscar Robertson. So, the evolution of these guys, I look at from a positional standpoint more than I do from like an overall standpoint. But to your broader point, you can't teach tall, and 7'2" with all the accolades. I'm sorry, that's still going to me, I'm drafting him first every draft forever.
Well, the reason I think that maybe those guys, the centers, to get slated a little bit, or slighted, I should say, is that they played a different position than they do now. Now all 7-footers can bring the ball up the court and, start the offense and never have to pass the ball off, where obviously a guy like, Kareem and Wilt and Bill Russell, some of those other guys that may be on that list, they didn't do that. Not that they couldn't have learned how to do that and didn't have the skill possibly to teach themselves to do that, but they just weren't, required to do that. So you look at it a little differently. So we're always looking at players that can start to finish on both sides of the ball, I think, as the top of the list, which isn't fair. So I think maybe it's not necessarily the greatest player of all times. Maybe it's the best career of all times, and I would definitely give that to Kareem Abdul-Jabbar.
Well, with respect to Wilt Chamberlain, he could and did do all of that. Wilt was a member of the Globetrotters before he went to the NBA. So he leaves Kansas and goes to play for the Harlem Globetrotters in a lot of ways because the league was marginally it was a lot different back in those days. We don't need to adjudicate that. It was just a different league. And he went on to play for the Globetrotters. And that, of course, did give him the skill. I knew you'd love this. I knew you'd love it. We had a lot of fun on the Sports Carnival. What can I say?
Yes.
P12 Foreman, I was sent to the K-hole during one of my knee surgeries I was awake for. One of the best days of my 10-year military career. Yeah,
the K-hole is the ketamine. That's what the K-hole is.
That's right. But here is something to take into consideration. I know we're having a lot of fun and joking, but when it comes to Veterans Day, one thing that I've noticed through my life, because your father's a veteran, my great uncles, one of them who passed away a year and a half ago was one of the final surviving members of the attack on Pearl Harbor, right? So, I mean, these guys, they've given a lot. One of the things that I really notice is how much these guys give after they serve. So Foreman, to this day, still dealing with, injuries and things that occurred during his service career. My friend Gus Fimple, I don't know if Gus is listening to the program this morning. He was a Navy man for about 13 years, right? These guys, because of the physicality of what they do, I mean, we talk about football, and it reminds me a lot of what some of these guys and gals go through in service too. The kind of toll it takes on your body, the after effects of that, because we see the glory when the glory happens. It's on the field of play. It's in the battlefield. And we extol that glory, but oftentimes we don't see the lingering after effects, which can last for years and years and years. Let me ask you, did your dad really, did he have any like long-term after effects after his service time?
So no, so he was a Morse code guy. And so he lucked out. He served during the Vietnam War, but he served in Japan. So just, as far as proximity goes, he missed all of the action, but he was actually in a mountain. And he was interpreting Morse code.
Wow, that's
and actually,
fun.
You want to hear something interesting? I don't think I've ever told you this before. He was recruited. Thank God he said no. He was recruited to go to the CIA.
Whoa.
And he actually
Are
visited
you serious?
in Baltimore. And he wasn't a big fan of Baltimore, wasn't a big fan of the East Coast.
Yeah.
Was a little intimidated. And thank God he said no to that, because I don't know if I'd even be here at this point. If that was
we wouldn't know who you were. That's for sure. We wouldn't be in the circle. The circle
No.
of trust, Chad, wouldn't be in the circle. And if I would have met you and say your dad would have been in the CIA and I would have shown up with the housewarming gift and it was an unsprouted plant, I can see how your dad would have looked at that and said, "Oh, thanks a lot for this, Dave. We'll really be looking forward to this. I thought you were a flower guy." Joey Miller's checking in. Joey, I'm glad that you are, because we opened up the show letting you know that Drew Holiday, Giannis not playing tonight. So that is something that you need to take a look at here. Game is going to be 7:00 on Bally Sports Plus against the Spurs, who Chad are 5-7 on the season right now. They play some plucky ball, but the Bucks should be okay without him. I don't know if I would make a play on this game tonight. I haven't really looked at the number, but Giannis and Drew Holiday are out, Joey.
This is a good one from Rob Dog. We haven't verified this. This may be fake news, but I doubt it coming from Rob Dog. Random fact, 10 years ago on Tuesday was one of the best moments in Jets history with the infamous butt fumble, the old butt fumble.
Yeah, I remember that one. That was something. That was Tony Romo, right? Like that was Tony Romo, because Mark Sanchez, he also had a butt something. Like he ran into somebody's ass. I know that Romo had the butt fumble too.
There's a lot of butts going on when it comes to football.
There really is.
Unfortunately, Dave Butts passed away, a former offensive lineman, I believe.
Oh, that's too bad. Mookie Betts is still playing. I know that's off topic, but that's a baseball player. So it's a Friday. It's a travesty. Checking in, says, "Hey, my dad was a Morse code engineer on a Navy ship." That's pretty cool. Yeah, that is pretty cool. I like this. Jen Bank. Oh, I'm going to Jen Bank's message up here. Jen Bank checking in, says, "I see this every day while I'm working, building orders for veterans to get examined for their benefits. Thank you to all of the veteran P1s for your service and sacrifice." And Jen, absolutely. We just, I think that's one of the things that we underappreciate. Like, again, we see these guys that play sports, that play football, and we see the guys that go out there and serve the country, and the uniforms look great, like all the pomp and circumstance, and we get these big buildups, and, you get your heart swole with all that pride, except for, again, you're not doing it. They are. And then the after effects of it, right? Like, so Joe Montana wakes up, he probably has to take, 17 vitamins and oil just to be able to get himself going. And that's the same for a lot of our servicemen and women. So think about that when you think about Veterans Day. It's not just in the moment going out there to be a badass and shoot guns and kill fucking, people. It's also about what happens afterwards. There's a lot.
And there's a psychological effect to that as well. That continues to linger. It's not just physical.
Hey, guys, when we come back, I want to take a look at this morning's poll on the Sports Carnival's Twitter page, at the Sports Carney, our Facebook group page as well. And, Chad, take a little look ahead to what I feel could be a Mike McCarthy revenge game this Sunday as the Cowboys come to Lambeau to take on the Packers. Stick around.
Now more than ever, if you're looking to buy or sell your first home or perhaps an investment property, you need a full-time dedicated real estate agent who is up to date on all the latest trends and analysis and is ready to give you the kind of service that you deserve. That's why the official real estate agent and the official real estate partner of the Sports Carnival is Kyle Cable of OneTrust Real Estate. Whether you're looking to buy or sell your first home or perhaps you are a seasoned investor, call the official real estate agent partner of the Sports Carnival, Kyle Cable of OneTrust Real Estate.
Coming to Fox this fall, it's the Bench Brothers.
Talking about that street clothes and Westbrook.
They're getting down on the bench.
The Bench Brothers, brought to you by
Big Dick's Hoagie Heaven. Remember, ladies, the first 6 inches is free. And by Don Francisco's. At Don Francisco's, if you're up all night, so are we.
Street clothes and Westbrook.
They're getting down on the bench.
And back to the action, live from the Trauma Center studios. This is the one and only Sports Carnival. Mike Tyson once said, they called me a rapist and a recluse. I'm not a recluse. Here's your host, Dave Carney. That's a real quote.
Oh, my goodness. Iron Mike Tyson. I have enjoyed his recent turn, Chad, from being like the baddest man on the planet, which he still is a pretty bad man. And you gotta know one thing. When Mike Tyson's flying JetBlue, there's already a problem. Don't fuck with that guy. Okay? Because he'll straight up punch you the fuck out. Like, that's just going to happen. But I've liked where Mike's gone. I mean, the weed that he smokes, the Hot Boxing with Mike Tyson podcast. You ever watch that thing on YouTube?
Yeah, I've watched a couple of those. My favorite is Mike Tyson Mysteries, which is a cartoon
awesome.
on Adult Swim. That obviously doesn't, I don't think exists anymore.
That was a cartoon, wasn't it?
Yeah, it did feature Norm Macdonald as Pigeon. Unfortunately, Norm Macdonald passed away a couple of years ago now. And but yeah, you know what? I'm the same way. Mike Tyson has calmed down a lot. He's kind of become a completely different person. And he admits that he's not the same person that he used to be. He even referred to himself. I was like an animal. And, and that's just the way I looked at it. And that's the way I approached it. And I think at one time he was the baddest man on the planet and one of the most ferocious fighters to ever fight, period.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, Mike Tyson, for us in our childhood, if you're of a certain age and you were watching boxing, by the way, was my first favorite sport. Like, I mean, I went to baseball games, went to the Dodgers, but my dad was a huge Muhammad Ali, Sugar Ray Leonard, Tom Hearns, Marvin Hagler, Hector, Macho Camacho, I mean, Roberto Duran, all these guys, huge boxing fan. And that era of the 80s boxing that actually kind of culminated with a great heavyweight generation with Tyson and Holyfield, Riddick Bowe, and these guys was quite magnificent. What I will say is this: Mike Tyson, for a number of different reasons, never really got a fair shot to show what he could do in the boxing ring. Like, once Gus D'Amato passed and he wasn't with him, and that fucking asshole, Don King, who I think you've met once or twice before.
I have. Yeah.
The fucking asshole, Don King, arch criminal, who tried to rob Muhammad Ali, couldn't quite get there because he was late to the party, got his arms around Mike. I think he just completely damaged the career of what would have been possibly one of the greatest athletes in North American professional sports history, because Mike Tyson, boy, you want to talk about just a tragic sort of a life story. I mean, this kid was never really given a good shot young. And then when you get around a guy like Don King that basically pushes you to the worst of your potential self, it's not surprising to see where it went. I'm just glad that Mike's not dead. To be frank.
That's that. Yeah, good point. And I did meet Don King, and just to be fair, very nice guy, very, very nice, very friendly. He was wearing a Canadian tuxedo. If you don't know what that is, it was
Yes, I do.
All jeans, and it had I think I want to say I stopped counting at 75 American flags on it.
Only in America, Chad. Only in America.
And his hair was just, I mean, it was like it's one of those deals where, and I've met Hulk Hogan before, and I've met Macho Man before. Like when you know somebody, or you grew up with somebody, and then you see him in person, it's almost like it's not real. And that was kind of the situation. I'm like, oh my God, that's Don. I'm like standing next to Don King. It was kind of neat, in which I understand he is kind of a dirtbag, but in person he's very nice.
Well, listen, the way that people would interact with us when we were like at a radio station was markedly different than how they would interact with people, because they know that what they're doing with us is trying to get on, right? I mean, that was back in the day too. We worked at a big shop in Vegas, and they needed to get on, so they needed to be fairly nice. Al Sharpton, he didn't get that memo. I remember studio. Boy, that guy was just a whirlwind of dick. Speaking of Hulk Hogan, though, you've got Morning Wood. Woody's text up here says Tyson is still one of the most feared athletes that's ever lived. Now, you mentioned Hulk Hogan. Did you know that Kyle Morning Wood, Chad, you remember that Hulk Hogan television program back in the day where it was like Hogan, with his daughter, that real good looking blonde chick, and his wife, and they were down in Tampa where he lives. Well, there was like a viewer giveaway. Like you had to somebody went down and like got to stay with Hulk, and that was Kyle Wood. Kyle Wood and Terry. Kyle Wood and Terry are very good friends.
He calls him Terry. So that's how good of friends he is. He calls him Terry.
Oh,
wow.
Yes.
By the way, it was cool because he actually came in, and it happened to be promoting his daughter's album, and he came into my office. So Hulk Hogan walks into my office. A huge guy, by the way. I mean, not small.
Is he like 6'5", 6'6"?
It was hard to say. I would say at least 6'6", maybe taller. I mean, seemed taller. Larger than life, takes up the whole doorway. Extremely gracious, very nice guy. But it was like all of a sudden I became a 12-year-old kid again, because I'm taking my vitamins, I'm saying my prayers, exactly. And I was stoked. And then a couple of weeks later, and this was unrelated, Macho Man Randy Savage came in, and I got to meet him. And so I was anticipating going, meeting him and going, and he'd be like, "Oh, nice to meet you." He's like, "Oh, nice to meet you." He actually literally sounds like that.
Yeah,
I don't think that's an act, or he's convinced himself that that's the way he talks. I don't know, but it was really interesting. And again, I all of a sudden became a 12-year-old boy, and it was kind of weird.
I don't want to betray any confidence, so I won't tell you the most recent story I've heard about Macho Man Randy Savage and what goes into, or what went, I should say, because I believe he's dead. What went into that stuff. But we'll save that for an off-air conversation. Woody, why don't we get into a DM here with Chad so you can sort of break this out? Before we go too far without talking about Brooke has turned into a very good. Wow.
Foreman just coming with it. Nice.
Foreman, did you go down the K-hole again today? Is that what we're doing? Are you going down the K-hole today? Chad, let's bring up that slide for the Green Bay Packers, because we've got a poll question on our Twitter feed at the Sports Carney. It's also on our group page, the Facebook group page, which, by the way, now has 200 solid members. Very exciting.
Make it 300.
We'll get there. Okay. We just started it 2 weeks ago.
I'm just saying, let's make it 300.
Well, the 300, that would be fun, right? That was a good movie. People forget that it was 150.
Too many half-naked dudes in it for me, but yeah, other than that, it was good.
Well, that's why I've mentioned this to my son before. He's like, "Man, that 300, those dudes were tough." And I said, "Yeah, it was 150 couples. They were fighting for each other, bro."
That's good.
Well, that's fairly true if you read the history. So the Sports Carney is our Twitter feed at the Sports Carney. The question, Chad, very simple. Same one on Facebook. Who's going to win on Sunday? Packers or Cowboys? Cowboys getting 75% of the votes so far on our Twitter feed, again at the Sports Carney. And we got this slide pulling up. Is this the Mike McCarthy revenge game? And I say yes. I was reading something of Micah Parsons, a quote of Micah Parsons the other day. Micah Parsons, probably the defensive player of the year in waiting for the Dallas Cowboys. This kid is just a wrecker. I mean, he is a game wrecker. And Micah Parsons said this, and I'm going to paraphrase, but he's like, "My grandma used to tell me about roaches and ask me about roaches. And do you want to kill the roach, step on him, and kill him? Or do you want to let him go out there and rebuild his little family?" He's like, "You got to step on him." So he said that that's what he wants to do to Aaron Rodgers, because he thinks that Rodgers is going to try to play a style of football that he hasn't played yet this year. Micah Parsons said, "We're going to see an Aaron Rodgers that we haven't seen yet. And because of that, I can't give this guy any life. I've got to go out there and try to stomp him out like he was a roach." And when I see this particular meme of Rodgers, which has been floating around for years, kind of the concussed look at the official. I got hit. What are you talking about? There should be ban this man right here, right? Usually when Aaron Rodgers gets hit, he calls Goodell and he's like, kick this guy out of the league. He touched me. We're playing football. But Micah Parsons is coming for this guy's fucking head. I mean, he really is. He's going to come for his head. And while I think we might overhype the Mike McCarthy, element of this, the players still have to play the game.
Yeah.
Don't for 1 second think that from an institutional, organizational level, Jerry and Stephen Jones, the GM and whatever, the president of the Cowboys, Mike McCarthy, Dan Quinn, and everybody haven't mentioned this. Mike McCarthy was laughed out of Green Bay. He was mocked and ridiculed. I mean, in such a hardcore way, and I was really a part of this, that you just know, and you've played football, and I've been in these buildings, they've talked about that. And it's not to say that Mike can win the game, and not to say that these guys are so in love with Mike McCarthy, they're doing it for the Gipper. But I do think that the focus, the intention, and if you're a Dallas team, you've got no room to wiggle here because the Eagles are winning, and they're going to keep winning. The Giants are in that, in that divisional race. The Cowboys don't have a lot of wiggle room. They need this game.
Well, I'm wondering if Dan Quinn, if they're going to come all out blitz and they're just going to put a lot of pressure on Aaron Rodgers, and hopefully the counter to that from Matt LaFleur is to run the football, right? Do a lot of draws and things of that nature. I don't know. Because you kind of mentioned something off the air that they don't do anymore. And I know you're not even supposed to say this out loud. And I'm not saying there is quote unquote a bounty on Aaron Rodgers, but I have a feeling that they're trying to jack up their defense. So like, you know what? If Aaron Rodgers doesn't make it through the whole game, he doesn't make it through the whole game, right? I mean, because it's not only just about beating Green Bay for Mike McCarthy, it's specifically beating Aaron Rodgers, right?
Yes.
Would you agree with that?
I would. And I think that Aaron this week has tried to take a tactical approach to this whole thing, thanking Mike McCarthy for his years together, talking to him more. Aaron Rodgers is one of the biggest, if not the biggest reasons that Mike McCarthy was fired midseason. It was Aaron Rodgers' consistent and continuous eye-fucking of this man on the sidelines, which, look, say what you will, maybe Rodgers was technically right in many cases that the play call wasn't good. There is something about the aesthetics of that do not sit well with me. And I think the more and more that this whole Rodgers drama king thing has gone on, and the less and less successful the Packers have been in the postseason, the pendulum swing goes to the other way, where it's like, I can't see this anymore. I don't want to see him looking so frustrated when Taylor fucking Heineke is winning football games for the Washington Commanders and pumping these guys up. When PJ Walker, who played in the XFL, Chad, is able to win a football game on Thursday night in the rain. It didn't look great. Okay. I mean, listen, there were more dropped interceptions than there were made passes in this game last night.
Right.
But my point is, these are backups. They are winning football games, and they are about the team. When you see Rodgers so completely dismissive. Oh, and by the way, now reports from multiple sources say the wide receivers on the Green Bay Packers are going to reporters and saying, we're tired of this guy burying us under the bus every game. He ain't playing so fucking good. Why are we the scapegoats? Like, what is it about us? The team makeup of football, Chad, we hit on this all the time. It's so vitally important. The reason the Eagles are 8-0, if you listen to them, they love playing with each other. They're having too much fun. They're enjoying each other. They're all about it. The defense, the offense, the special teams, the coaches. This is a buy-in. Aaron Rodgers is almost like, well, I'm too good for you. I'm too good for you. And if that's your approach, even if it's technically true, I don't see that being a winning recipe. I just don't.
Well, clearly, and it's not working. And I would say, though, if there is a chance to turn the season around for the Packers, it would be this weekend. If they do manage to eke out a win here, that could be the thing that turns the tide. I don't think it's going to happen. You don't think it's going to happen. But would you agree that if you're going to pick a moment, if this may be your last moment to possibly turn it around?
Yeah, if there was one final moment, right? If there was one final opportunity, then this would be it. I would have thought that would have been the case against Buffalo and against the Patriots. Well, the Patriots, they won, the Jets, the Giants. I would have thought that there would have been those moments, but you're right. If there is going to be any sort of turnaround, which I'm not feeling that there will be, but if there is, it would be Sunday for sure. If Green Bay wins this game, yeah, I suppose at that point we recalibrate on Monday and we take a whole new look at the season for sure.
But if they lose, which we think they will, they're more than likely going to lose against the Tennessee Titans. Then they get a bye week, and then I think they come back and they play Chicago, which is a crapshoot there. I mean, it's a tough road to hoe either way. But to me, this is their moment. This is their moment, and maybe they can meet expectations. I doubt it. There's a lot of injuries. It does look like a lot of guys did come back to practice. I think Aaron Jones is going to play. I think Romeo Doubs is going to play. They just picked up that kid Abrams as a safety from the Raiders, I believe. I'm not sure if he's playing or not. So there's some things happening, but I just think that Dan Quinn's defense and the Cowboys are just a little too tough for him.
They are. And the Green Bay Packers defense against the run is not exceptional. While the Cowboys don't play exceptional run defense, they've got the third best scoring defense in the NFL, and they're the fourth best defense against the pass. So, Aaron, good luck, buddy. And don't forget, take this morning's poll question on our Twitter feed at the Sports Carney and on the Facebook group page as Chad wants to get us up to the magic number of 300. Chad, have a fun rest of your Friday, guy. I'll be talking to you over the weekend.
You do the same. Hashtag dead ball bitching. Later.